Hoops through life. Hoops through life.
Welcome to another episode of Hoops Through Life, a podcast where we discuss everything related to women's basketball player development, the collegiate recruiting process, and transition from high school to college. I'm your host, Elsbeth Bierman. Our guest today is Coach C. White. Coach White started her coaching career as a part-time assistant at Bentley University, where she was also a standout player, over 1,000-point scorer, currently 12th all-time in assists and 8th all-time in three-pointers. She then spent 1 year as an assistant at Harvard University, but I think Bentley was calling her name because she came back as Bentley's top assistant, where she remained until she was named the head coach in 2020. This past 24-25 season, Coach White's team notched an impressive 33-2 record, winning the NE10 championship for the fourth year in a row and making it to the Elite Eight in the NCAA Division II tournament. Coach, I can't wait to get into it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for a great intro.
Oh, you're welcome. It's easy when all of those accolades are there. So let's go back to maybe the last AAU tournament that you attended. What are one or two things that an athlete did on the court that made you write their name down or made you just want to keep watching them?
It's so funny because after this happened, we had her up on campus and I told her the story. But I was watching a game and I was watching, just people playing basketball, and, it was good, high caliber ball. And then I went to a different court and I was watching high caliber basketball, but the smile on the face and the happiness, just exuding fun and energy, like the love of the game when they were on the court and especially on the bench. And that was like, it was reminding me like, that's what I want. That's the kind of kid that I want to coach. And that's the love for the game that, it shouldn't feel like a job or a business. It should be fun, and I know it's very serious and there's high stakes and stress sometimes, but it's still a sport that's really fun to play and you should be having fun and smiling and enjoying yourself.
Yeah, this might go without saying, but why is that important to you?
Yeah, I think when you sign up to play at Bentley, you know the stakes and you know that, your goal is to win. And it's, there's some high pressure. But if you can't enjoy the game, you're not going to win as many games. And if you're not enjoying the game, your teammates aren't enjoying playing with you. And it's the trickle down effect. So to see people just smiling and just, having the joy come out of their body because they're playing the sport they love, that's the reason you'll get through the hard times, the ups and downs of a very, very long season.
Yeah. And if I think about, so you all have won 4 conference championships in a row, which is not easy to do, right? And I'm sure throughout that whole time, there are ups and downs, like emotionally through the season. I'm sure at multiple times you're like probably thinking the world is ending, right? Like it's so tumultuous. Would you say, or how do you think that joy, that love kind of helps push the athletes through those times when I'm sure, like you said, it is so stressful?
Yeah, and it can be a grind, you're doing the same thing, the hamster wheel, you win a game and then you're back doing film and you're prepping for the next one. And it's just, this cycle of like, back to the drawing board and let's do it all over again. I think it's the personalities of the players on the team. And I know this year they thought they had a great season last season. And then this year, our captain said, this is the most fun I've ever had playing basketball. And like, for me, that is like the best compliment you can get. I wasn't expecting that. That's not the goal, is like, let's make sure this is the best time you've ever had in your life. I mean, it is, but it's overlapping. It's the school and the bus trips. It's not just playing. And she truly thought that this was the best and most fun time she's ever had in her life playing basketball. And that is just so wonderful to hear. I think it's because we have to enjoy the ride. We have to be present and be very, very happy with each win or loss, and get better the next day because of it. But if you're not enjoying the ride, no one is. So you can't just be like, all right, beat them, let's move on. We got, you have to enjoy it. And we talk about it as a staff, is we can't make it seem like, oh, this is just what we do. We're supposed to win this game. We won this game. Let's move on. We have to enjoy it. And we've really made a point this year to enjoy every single win. But having perspective of we need to be better. And I think our players could feel that from us, top down, and they had fun. And I had to let go a little bit. We had more music before practices than we've ever had. We had some silliness and some giddiness and some, goofing around for plays, but then all of a sudden they'd snap right back. They knew how to joke. And then also next play, like, all right, we got it. So it wasn't distracting, but it was because of the personalities of our leaders.
Yeah, and that's like such the thinnest line to walk of like being too silly but keeping it light, but then also knowing when to lock in and knowing when you're supposed to be paying attention. And it sounds like that really speaks to the leadership that you have on the team and just probably a lot of what they do off the court too, in terms of how they're communicating with the other people as well. But on the flip side of that, if you think about a tournament that you've been to or any game that you've watched, what are a couple of things that an athlete has done that has made you kind of, I don't really feel like watching this game anymore, or like, yeah, I don't know if that's right for me in Bentley.
I think the biggest thing that comes to mind, and I look for it because I can't stand this, but when you're out of water or you're out of Gatorade and you're like looking across the court and you're like, like it's like we'll prepare better, bring two, but let's not blame mom or
Yeah.
dad for not, And it like there was one time like this little brother got to bring the water, the Gatorade to the student athlete. And he's just stoked to go out there and like go across the court and like see his big sister they're so proud of, just the way you take the Gatorade, the way you take the water, are you appreciative? Do you love on your little brother? Are you like too cool? And like just like, I watch everything because I really want wonderful human beings and I want kind people that, respect their families and their parents and their guardians, the people that are, doing all this to get them to this event. And another big one for me is like you've been to these gyms, there's like 70 courts in one huge warehouse, and the ball will roll off the court and like go court to court, whatever. And this poor ref that's been reffing like 6 games that day, and he's triple the age of these student athletes, they look at it like that's your job. Like go get the ball. They like freeze as if like they can't go on the other court or they can't. I really want the kid that's gonna go the extra mile, like that's gonna go get the ball, that's gonna hand it to the ref. Like I look for kind people.
And it just makes me think of the phrase, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And so it's just one of those things where um, just doing something kind probably means that you might do something kind in another area of your life. Are there any basketball specifics in terms of like both of those questions? So things that kind of attune you to a player and then kind of turn you off to a player.
Sure. The first thing, obviously, athleticism, it's easy to notice. It's easy to notice stature and someone's build. But overall athleticism, our strength coach says all the time, like you can teach athletes, you can fix their shot and you can work with them. But if you have somebody that's really, really slow-footed or just can't move laterally, that's going to be a really hard thing to do in 4 years. So, I look for athleticism first and obviously lateral footwork for me, because I'm a big defensive minded coach, is huge. And then to go along to that, if I'm really being greedy and picky, like I love long arms. Like I without realizing it a couple years back, was noticing how long the arms are of just like a 5'6" point guard, but like, wow, everybody's arms are so long. And so now I'm like tuned in to the length.
So what you're saying is you're bringing a tape measure as you go on these recruiting trips and you're like, all right, hold on, show me your wingspan.
You can see it when they're defending, and if they know how to use their length, then no one can go by them. So, yeah, that would be a good tip for me to
Yeah.
bring the measuring stick. But
That would be interesting. They'd be like, "Oh, there's that Bentley coach again
there's that
with her
weirdo with the
with
measure.
her with her measuring stick." So do you think, or I'll ask this question first. Where do you think a lot of athletes or parents really get tripped up in the recruiting process?
Yeah, I think there's parents that don't know the process, and that's okay. They need good mentorships and coaches to help guide them. Um, I think when parents understand the process and understand that I get that my child is only 17 and we've been doing all these things for them. And now I need to give them a little bit of a nudge to do it themselves. You'll see that on visits, you really want to hear from the player, the student athlete, most or more. And so parents are trying to help the child as much as possible, but then they can sort of take over the entire visit, which is helpful. And you think you're helping, but you really want to make sure that the kid is talking too. And so I think for the first visit, they're nervous, and it's really helpful to have, a mom or dad or guardian helping talk and facilitate the conversation. But, the next time we get them up or on the phone, it's really nice to hear from them to see, what they want to say and what they're feeling about things, and they're answering questions. And then just to know that they're more comfortable with you, that they can do that.
When you say that they're not understanding of the process, what do you mean by that?
So you can have parents that just don't know. They don't know, maybe because you sent them back an email one time. Are you recruiting us? Are you not? There are parents that don't understand the process of, okay, you come and you watch us play, and then you go through where you are on the list, and then you come and visit, and then maybe you're doing paperwork. Like, I think some parents just don't understand, like, how the visits and how it all works. And then, if there's scholarship, if they're not, and that's not to a fault of their own. You need to have very open, upfront conversations with coaches, which you hope that the coaches will be very honest. And then I think sometimes the parents don't know that we're watching them in the stands too, that nobody wants the player for the next 4 years whose mom, dad, uncle is a lunatic in the stands. Like, it really, really does not help the player at all. And I've had events where I've liked a kid, can't do it. I just can't do it, because you don't want someone like that in the stands representing your university.
Yeah, and then you see the thing where something happens and then the athlete's immediate look is like to their parents in the stands. And
Yeah,
it's like that is not always the best indicator. Like, you
right.
don't have the context of why they're doing that, but it just doesn't look good.
No, absolutely. And my heart goes out for those kids, and I really hope to not be that parent. And when I'm at my 9-year-old's 3v3, workouts, I'm hoping he doesn't look up at me, but he's so innocent. Sometimes he makes a good shot. He's like, you know. So we have to have those conversations in the car on the way home. Like, but when they get older, the worst is like the look when they didn't make a shot or they did something bad. Like, I feel for that kid, and there's times where I really want to mentor them because I want them to have, the feeling of it's okay. We're all going to make mistakes, and like, we're still going to support and love on you and have your back. Because, that kid's getting in the car and getting ripped because she didn't have 15 that night, which is like, ugh, that hurts my heart.
When you're watching athletes, going through the process with them, how are you balancing, like seeing something maybe out of context or not fully understanding the context, liking them, wanting to recruit them, and also that they're like only, 16, 17 years old, they're not developed. Like, how are you balancing all of that, if that question makes sense?
Yeah, it does. It is a healthy, it's like you got to have a happy balance because they're kids, and they're growing into themselves, and they're learning who they are, and the confidence is shaky sometimes. And um, part of it is, can I be a great role model and help this player build her confidence? And part of it is, okay, this is happening over and over again. This is a pattern I keep seeing. This wasn't one time where I'm just, I'm off today, and I'm a little bit off. So if you're really interested in a player and you see something that, sort of, rubbed you the wrong way, get them on campus, have more conversations. And the other thing is, it's really important to, make all those phone calls. The high school coach, the AAU coach, teammates are a great receptor of how do they feel about that teammate. And so you just got to watch interactions to try to like really get to know the player you're getting. And I think it's important because you're offering them, $80,000 a year. So it's a big investment. You want to make sure you do your homework to make sure you're getting the right person.
hmm Yeah, I want to go back for a second about the original question about where athletes and parents kind of get tripped up in the process. And you mentioned the point about like them not really understanding. And what I got from that answer was just kind of not understanding the certain touch points and maybe what they mean. I don't know if that's a correct interpretation of what you were saying in terms of like you email back and forth or they come on campus and they're not really sure what it means. And do you think it's like, do you think they're afraid to ask questions? Do you think it's a lack of mentorship from coaches who may not know what's going on? Like where do you think, I don't know if this question makes sense either, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to talk about it for a second.
Sure. I think a lot of times when parents haven't had a child do the recruiting process before, they've not gone on tours, they've not gone on visits, they've not had this back and forth interaction with a coach. That's really confusing. And I love when parents are like, we are new to this. This is our first child, or, this is our oldest, and we've never done this before. That's when I think it's really important to have a great AAU coach, high school coach that, goes to bat for them, tells them what to expect on a visit, tells them the questions that they should ask, and that it's okay. They have no rules. They can ask any question. And so I think it's important for them to like, I know it's uncomfortable to ask, but I want to know, like, are you offering us a scholarship, or is she, highly recruited walk on? Like, where does she stand? How do you see her on your list, or, where does she fit in? On your list. I think that's hard to ask, and sometimes it's hard to ask in front of the student athlete in case it's not the answer they wanted. But I think it's important that they ask all the questions that they might have, because it is a very extensive process, and it is, lots of things coming into play. So yeah, for a coach to sit them down and be like, you ask any questions that you want. And if you're confused, I always make sure that our parents leave that visit with my cell phone and make sure that the student athlete shares it. So I know on the way home, their brain's going a mile a minute. They're going to have 1,000 more questions for me. And I say, you can ask any question you want. We can talk about your child as many times, as much as you want. We just aren't going to talk basketball once she arrives here. You can call me at 1 o'clock in the morning because something feels off with your kid, but we're not going to talk about her performance that night in the game.
hmm It makes me think when you said that, excuse me, of like, would it be helpful? And I don't know if this is a good idea, so you can tell me, no, that's horrible. But it's like, would it be helpful if, from a recruiting perspective, you were to put together just like a one sheet of all the most common questions you have? It's like when they leave, here, just take this and let me know if you have any questions. But here's
Yeah.
also a lot of information that you may have forgotten or didn't write down or, whatever it is.
Very helpful. I also think having like a Zoom with parents, with college coaches, it would be a huge thing. I think people would attend that. I think people would want to hear and ask questions to college coaches of all sports to know the difference between 1, 2, and 3. And I think that would be very helpful for parents and recruits.
Yeah, so from your perspective, where are people confused about Division II? Like, where do you find yourself having to explain yourself a lot
Yeah, the
to
biggest
athletes?
thing is like, oh, if we went Division 1, she'd have to sit out for a year because she wouldn't play right away. And I'm like, in the schools that you're talking about, if you're not going to play there right away, you're not going to play here right away either. So the D1, like, just saying like we play D1, I don't think they understand the level of like the mid to low ones and the high elite twos are very similar. I think even student athletes that have seen games, unless they've really done the research, they don't understand it's a very similar level in terms of skill.
hmm
I think the biggest difference that we talk about all the time, and I think it's a huge perk for Division 2, is the fact that we don't require them to be here in the summer taking classes and working out. And it's a huge perk because they need to be kids. They need to go on vacation. They need to be with their family. They might need to have a job. They might want to go, overseas and, do a study abroad program that they can't do during the year. So it's a great perk. That's the difference and the big separator between 1 and 2.
And then what about because I assume, well, there's like the prestige of saying like I played Division 1,
Mhm.
but then they also talk about scholarships. What are some things that people might not know about Division 2 and scholarships?
Sure. Well, some ones have like 15 scholarship, most use 12. So we use 10 in Division 2, and not every Division 2 program is fully funded, meaning they don't have full 10 scholarships. We're fortunate that we do, and we have great support. And the other thing is other schools, they can work off maybe merit money, which is academic money. It's really, really difficult to get any merit money at Bentley because the academic rigors, but at a lot of other schools that, all around and all D2 schools, they can make very good merit packages for good students. So you might not be fully scholarship, but maybe you get like 25 grand merit. Maybe you're going the financial aid route and you're getting another 20 grand each year with financial aid. So they could come up with a package that's really good for that family, and it doesn't have to be full scholarship.
Are there any questions that an athlete should ask or a parent should ask about scholarships? Like any question you think is really important to know the answer to?
Yeah, I think if someone offers you a scholarship, or let's say you get offered a full scholarship, what does that entail? Because at other schools, it might not entail the same thing that our school entails. Is it unlimited meal plan? Is it room and board and tuition? Is it require cover books? Does it require or cover anything academically related? So you need a protractor, you need a whatever, like that should be fully covered. Some places it absolutely is not. And I know that D1s, they have something where they can cover, I think it's called cost of attendance. And that was a new term to me. We do not do that. I think it's legal that Division II can, but Bentley does not cover the cost of a flight or a bus or a train coming back for Thanksgiving break or back from Christmas. So yeah, what does that scholarship entail? What does it cover? And what would we then have to pay on our own out of pocket?
Yeah, I think that's a great question to ask because if like let's say if somebody just were to tell me, "Oh, you have a full scholarship to this school." It's like, "Okay, great." Like in my mind that means one thing, but if I'm standing next to three people, in their mind it might mean something completely different. So just getting that clarity I think is just like super important.
Yep. And
And
I think
then no, go ahead, please.
so another tricky one is we used to sign the NLI, and everything's changing. So now it's like letters of commitment or, regardless, a full scholarship offer is actually only 1 year at a time. So when you signed the NLI, it was a 4-year scholarship. It's only legally binding 1 year at a time. So it can change and it can be taken back. And that's important to know. And it could really scare somebody if we offer full and then they sign and realize, wait, this is just for my freshman year. It's for us, it's all four, but it just goes 1 year at a time legally.
That could also be a good question to ask because it sounds like for you and your staff, you're saying, I'm committing to you for 4, but this is just what it is.
Right.
But don't assume that either. Like
Right.
ask, like, am I being evaluated on a yearly basis? What does that process look like? And just to again, just to get that clarity and peace of mind too, to know like you're, I don't know, maybe they feel like their performance or whatever is tied. And I'm sure if somebody on your team breaks like team rules or something, that's a different story. But like generally, it's like the commitment is for 4 years.
Right. Which also for us includes if they get hurt. If
Yeah.
you committed to us and we've committed to you and you get hurt, I'm not pulling that. But that's not the case other places.
Hmm.
The only thing we say is don't get in trouble with the law. You got
Yeah.
to keep your grades up. You can't fail out. You got to keep your grades right where they are. And, let's stay out of jail.
Yeah. Low bar, low bar.
Yeah, not an issue with our kids. They're just like high performing. They want to get all A's in the classroom. They want to
Yeah.
be great I mean, they're measuring their food intake. I mean, they're just really serious. So
I'm sure like a B or and God forbid a C would just like be that might be failure, it sounds like. Yeah.
right.
So we talked a little bit about visits. Is when a student athlete, their parent comes on a visit, is there a question or a couple of questions that you tend to ask all athletes that you really like?
Yeah, I like to know the difference between their high school program and like the philosophy and the style of play compared to their AAU program. Because well, if if a player's on campus, she's the fastest, the strongest, one of the best athletes on her team. So in AAU, she might be, a two guard and a shooter, but in high school, she's the point. She's got to run the point. She's also the biggest, strongest player, so she's got to defend, their center. So the versatility is really impressive to see the difference between AAU and high school. And I like when they play different positions because they have to because of what's needed for their high school team. And it diversifies their game a little bit, which is nice. And I also like to hear them say, wherever the coach needs me, I'm the tallest player, even though I'd probably be playing point in college. I have to play face up four in high school because I got to defend the bigs and jump center. Like I love that stuff.
Yeah, and it also sounds like you like to hear they're kind of up for anything as like where they need to go, that's where they'll be and they'll figure it out. Is there anything in that answer that would maybe make you pause or alarm you a little bit?
I think if you're talking negatively about your coaches or you're talking negatively about your teammates, I find the most mature and poised student athletes will refrain, even though I know I can see that this isn't the best situation and, you're toughing it out. And instead of, putting blame on other people, just being like, it wasn't my best year for other, outside factors, but, overall, we were as successful as we could be, and I'm proud of it. That kind of answer, I'm like, this kid's very mature and very smart.
Let's move over to maybe skills a little bit. So, when you think about getting, especially the first years as they come to you, what skills do you find yourself having to teach like over and over again once the athletes get on the court with you?
Number one thing that it's like they've never heard the terms before is transition defense.
Oh, okay.
Like they just like, what? There's a system to this. So we do it every day. I mean, we do it in just like our footwork warm-up lines, like starting practice, we just loading up to the ball and, not being running with our player. And wow, it's missed basket. So I'm not guarding the person I had on my scout. Like what? Just, the fullback getting way back, the halfback, who's picking up the ball, and the three tailbacks. Like we talk about it and we talk about it and we talk about it, and we just have to keep working on that all year long. And I think what goes along with that would just be defense in general. I think the hardest transition from high school to college is lateral quickness, containing your own when someone is equally as fast, if not more explosive than you. You've always been the best athlete on the floor, and now you can't take a play off, especially defensively. So if you can't contain your own, it takes a couple of years before you're getting on that floor.
Yeah, defense is the fastest way to playing time.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you have an answer to this, but with the defensive part of like that being the hardest transition, what's something that athletes can do to try to lessen that jump or just be a little bit more prepared for what is going to be asked of them defensively at the college level?
That's a great question. And it's the most important thing, because if you are going to make that jump and that transition, um, women have very weak butts. So it's like if women are hockey players, okay, their glutes and they've got all this muscle from doing the skating slides, skate hops, things like that. So where we're weak is where we need the most work in order for injury prevention, but mainly to be able to move the way we need to be able to move. So I think the extra work in the weight room on like lateral slides, lateral footwork, jump rope and, ladder work, just footwork in general. But if you notice a woman's body, like our hips and the muscles that, align with our glutes, they're not built like men. And I think because it's a weaker muscle, it needs more work and it takes a lot of time. If okay, we still don't have the most strong glutes, how can we still get away with our deficiencies? Well, we need to be able to use our length. So we need to always have that measuring stick and know that if I can just keep this person between me and you with my arm without touching you, I can use my angles and keep you in front of me, even though I'm a little bit slower footed. And I think that's just an overall discipline, is staying down in a stance and not going for any of those fakes and using your length. That takes a long time because it's discipline.
Hmm. And also I do like the answer that you gave of just like in the weight room, because that is something that I think is also like a huge gap between, especially if you don't come from a high school program that lifts, to go against. So now you're 18 going against 21 to 22-year-olds who have been
Right.
lifting for 4 years. Try
Yeah.
again. You're just going to get
Right.
tossed around like a rag
Right.
doll, right?
Right.
So, and lifting is one of those things that you can't cram for. Like it's not a test that you can cram for. It's years of like of working on those muscle groups. So yeah, so I think that's super important as you're trying to make that jump, is at least to just but as you, I'm sure, so this actually is perfect because it transitions into like the transition process of like from high school to college. What are some things, and the reason that I bring it up now is because I'm sure that you give like a packet, a workout packet to all of the incoming kids, but like what are a couple of things that an athlete can do, athletically and academically maybe and socially too, in that first summer as they're gearing up to come to school in the fall?
Sure. We leave that completely to our strength coaches. And they're fabulous. And they have this software on their phones and they can track and keep, change weights, change lifts. They're the professionals. They know exactly how this person's jumping and landing and what needs more work and why. They know exactly the body type of a women's basketball player, that what muscle groups they need to work the most. Be it ankle mobility or landing and jumping with the knees, all that stuff. And so Mike Dance is our strength coach, and he has a great relationship, even with our incoming doing their summer packet. He's already getting to know them because of the questions and the back and forth that they have when they're, watching the links, doing the workouts. But in general, if you don't have that personal trainer, which I don't think everyone needs, as long as you're doing the basic body weight stuff, and not everybody has a place to go lift. So as long as you're doing, your core body stuff, your push-ups and your squat holds and your lunges and, those things are really, really important for your overall core. You can't assume that everyone's going to have a personal trainer. Like that's just not the way the world works. And not everybody has a gym to go to, and that's okay. But as long as your core is strong because you're doing the right body weight stuff, I think you'll be okay with a good base before you get to, okay, now we're throwing weights around, as a freshman.
So ideally, what does that summer look like for a student athlete, like heading into that first year of college? So I know you said like doing that weights. I guess I should say, is there anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I mean, if you have the means, you need to play basketball as much as you can. Just because you can bench 160 doesn't mean you can put the ball in the basket. So if you can play, play. If there's a hoop anywhere in your town, like let's go. Let's get used to those backboards and let's play. You're not going to get fives. That's okay. Play ones, play twos, whatever you can do to play. That's the most important thing. I think besides that, if you're needing to get in great shape, we talk to our players all the time. They might not have the means to go to a gym or a treadmill, but they can run. You can go to a track, or you can use your front street from street light to street light. Like there's no excuse for not being in shape in terms of cardio, because there's no reason that you can't get your cardio in on your own street, you know? So
Mhm.
I think that's important, is when you come, it's inexcusable to be in bad cardio shape. You might be weaker, you might not have great technique, but you should at least be ready, for the running and the jumping and the plyo stuff.
Yeah, just get your body prepared for
Mhm.
what it's about to experience. Because
Yeah, and freshman, that's tricky.
yeah,
But sophomore is inexcusable because now you know what's
yeah,
coming.
yeah, that's funny. I just think of the times where athletes would come up and say, like, they would point to the most obscure part of their body and be like, that muscle is sore. It's like, I have no idea what it is, but it's sore.
And you're exhausted, you're sore, you're like falling asleep in class, like, you're just your body's getting pushed to a limit that it never has before. And so that comes into like, how do you prepare for this? And it all's time management.
Hmm.
It's all being more organized, and you don't really get it. And you know this at Bridgeport, you don't really get it until like junior year. It's like, oh, I have three in a row. I got to pack a PB&J because I'm going to be starving. Like I got to have my hummus and my pretzels. Like I'm going to be needing a snack. And you don't really get that until like junior year, unfortunately. So now your nutrition's important, your sleep and all that stuff, but it takes a while before that clicks.
Yeah, and it's also the process of getting to know yourself and your body, of like what it needs to perform, what it needs to rest, what it needs to recover, and all of those pieces, because it's so different for every single person.
Yes.
So I think like starting, you don't have to figure it out like in that first summer, but just starting to like get attuned to, oh, when I, do a sprint workout for 30 minutes for the next 2 days, my legs are toast.
Nope.
It's like, okay, so now that you know that, what do you think like your body needs? And it's just like going through those checklists of observing and then like experimenting and then go and rinse and repeat, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm shaking after my track workout. Like I'm so malnourished. Maybe I should have a shake in the car this time.
I will never stop saying this because it baffles me when an athlete says, I forgot to eat today. I've never forgotten to eat in a day in my life. You know,
Right.
if I have access to food, like I
Right.
don't forget to eat. So I don't
And an unlimited
understand.
meal plan.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Like as many times as you want.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I have a last couple of questions that I ask all of the guests. What book or podcast would you recommend every incoming first year read before the first season begins and why?
Okay. It's so funny because we've done books a lot in the past, but my job is to figure out how brains work best. And so not everybody wants to read, and not everybody wants or likes to read or make, it actually like works, or it triggers, or and they can remember. So I've been changing how I coach, teach, because every brain's different. So this year, instead of a book or an article, we're all going to watch the movie Zootopia. And I just told them this, like, I don't know, maybe 5 days ago. And they are thrilled that that's not reading, but it's a movie. And it's a really cute movie.
Hmm.
But we want to talk about the parallels to our society right now, and some of the major, microaggressions in the movie. And it's fun and it's cute at the same time. And they're getting a kick out of it. And I think it'll be a great share once we come together and talk about the movie and, the real message that it's giving us.
Yeah. I love that. What a great idea. And once you said it, that song just popped in my head, that the famous
Yep.
Zootopia song. I
She's
won't
on the
sing it because
train.
I won't subject the listeners to me singing. All right, if you could snap your fingers, like you're the ruler of the recruiting process, maybe AAU basketball, whatever you want to be the ruler of, and you can snap your fingers and change one thing, what would it be and why?
It's funny because everybody talks about like, oh, how watered down AAU is now, and you know, it's so hard to find great players, and everybody plays these days. And at first, maybe when I was younger, I would have thought the same thing, like, yeah, this is not what it was when I played. And the people that came before me, it was really like AAU was a real deal. And it's changing every year, but I wouldn't change it because I'm loving the fact that they're filling the gyms and there's roster spots of like 20, and all these young women are playing basketball in the summer when they could be doing Lord knows what, they could be getting in trouble. They could just be sitting on their couch. I love it. It's just providing opportunity for more young women. And so if the coach needs to do a little bit more work to find better talent, then that's our job. So do more work, go to more events, find that, needle in the haystack. But I wouldn't change it for a second. And I think a lot of coaches disagree with me, but I love that just so many young women are out there playing.
Yeah. And that makes me think of something that I've been thinking about lately of just when people change something or make a change to, I don't know, some sort of structure, you think about, I feel like people tend to think about the benefits of that change, and they don't always think about the benefits of the system the way that it is. And so what you might lose from that change, and that's something that you kind of just did for me right there was, oh, if you scale it back or do whatever, then what are all of these, like, what are the benefits of the system? And that's exactly what you just said of so many girls are playing, and that is a positive thing for the game. That is something that's really good. So yeah, I love that answer. And it just made me think about things a little bit differently too. Is there anything you want to like plug or promote? If people want to get in touch with you or find more out about Bentley, like where can they do that?
We have a Bentley Instagram, which is run by some of our sports information, and also some of our players take it over and add their fun things. So there's that. But I'm just always on email. They can always find me. All my information is on the website. My email, my office line, can reach out to me anytime with any questions, and I'll probably provide my cell as well.
Perfect. All right, Coach. Well, I appreciate your time so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you aren't already, I would highly recommend subscribing to the podcast so you can get updated once new episodes are dropped. If you're a fan of the show, go ahead and leave a review. It really helps spread the word to more athletes, parents, and coaches. Now, if you have any questions for myself or future guests, feedback, or you're curious on how we can work together to help you reach your basketball goals, let's have a conversation. Feel free to email me at l@hoopsthroughlife.com today to set that up. That's el@hoopsthroughlife.com. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.